You're listening to First Paso. Because sometimes you simply need someone to help you take that first paso. Hello and welcome to First Paso, a show where we learn together how to take that first paso toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. My name is Candace Olushla, and today's special guest is a dear friend of mine from college. We're like African sisters, and she has such a beautiful story of a lot of overcoming that she has navigated, but she's also actively navigating. She's really a rock star, to be honest, in my eyes, and I love her to pieces. So it's an honor to introduce you guys to my sweet, darling friend, Tina Seibert. Girl, how you doing, girl?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. It's so great to see you. Happy to have you on my show.
I'm happy to be here.
Good. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm Tina, like Candace says. I am a mom. I have 2 kids, 2 girls, 4 and a 6-year-old. I'm married. I'm trying to think of what are the identifiers, what do we use to identify ourselves in life? When I was at Southern with Candy, I took nursing. So I have a nursing background, but due to life, I'm not working anymore. Just kind of doing the mom thing for now and the living thing for now. Other than that, I feel like that's a quick synopsis of who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair. I think that's a good thing to say. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people would be like, okay, so she was a nurse. She's doing the mom thing. She also said she was living. Like, what is happening? So
what does that mean?
What are you talking about? So I really want you to share your story, especially about either a season of transition that you were in, that you were navigating, or maybe a season of transition that you feel like you're day-to-day still trying to process. So take your time to unpack your story. Feel free to give us a little backstory on that. And I'll ask you some questions as you share your story.
Okay. So I guess in my mind, I've been through a couple of transitions, So I think starting out, I grew up as a missionary kid, so I already, how do I say this? I already learned from younger ages how to transition, I want to say quickly, not well, but quickly. And so I think the first big transition that I had was when my dad had died. He had died about 2 weeks before I graduated high school. And the high school that I was going to was in Kenya, and we lived in Zambia. So I wasn't living with my parents at the time. I mean, I did when I'd go home on vacation, but for most of the time I was living in Kenya. So my dad was supposed to be the speaker for our graduation, and he died 2 weeks before. Now, when he died, I think that was a really big thing for me. I just also don't feel like I knew how to deal with it. And the reason why, at least in my mind, is with who my dad was, at least background. My dad was a pastor. And then he also became like a televangelist. I think that's what they call them. And he would speak to the whole country in Zambia. And then it almost seems like he became a part of the government, almost like the pastor for it. I'm not really sure what they would quantify it as. So by the time he had passed away, I remember flying home. And when I got there was just a ton of people in the house. Like there was people everywhere. So immediately I felt like I had to almost suck back in all those emotions that I think sometimes people get time to like grieve through. And then when it was time for his funeral, I think they ended up moving it to a stadium because there were too many people in attendance. I think there was like 10,000 people that attended his funeral. And we happened to be, sitting up in the front. There was like news stations. There was all these things to where I don't feel like I was able to really just have that moment to grieve. And then I was also, just about to go into college, 2 weeks from graduation. So I had to go back to school, take tests, start applying to schools. And now when you're applying to schools, it's in a different way because it's no longer my dad and my mom are working, and my dad was working for the church. So if he's gone, now we're losing the subsidy for the church. So from the church. So I think there was just so many different pieces. So by the time I went to school, I don't even know how to explain it. I just feel like I didn't have time to process everything. And then next thing I knew, I was flying to the States to start school. And I just hadn't dealt with everything that had happened before. Because in my mind, his death happened fast. Apparently, he had been sick for a couple of months, but they didn't want to tell me about it because I was in school and I was going to graduate and I was a lot closer to Dad. So they didn't want to say anything in the hopes of, well, he'll get better. But he didn't end up getting better. So even the way I found out that he died, like it was through other people. I was at our school, the seniors were taken on a trip. So they had taken us to a beach and we're all staying at a hotel. And I was like, this is great. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to go to college. I had already like applied at different places. So I got a phone call from my mom's brother, who I don't usually speak to. He's in Canada. And so I was just like, hey, what's up? But like for some reason, the call wouldn't connect. I would hear like feedback and noise, and then I'd hear him speaking, and then the call would disconnect. And then it would happen again. I think he called like 5 times, and we just could not hear each other. So I remember going to one of the faculty and being like, hey, I need a phone card, because back home we use phone cards. You scratch your phone card, you put money in your phone, because then I was going to call him. And so I was just like, I need money. I need to put money in my phone so that I can call my uncle and see what's going on, because he never calls. And so the faculty was just like, yeah, sure, like here. And then like right as he's pulling out the phone card, his wife smacks his hand. And then he puts it back. He's like, on second thought, I don't have any more. And I'm like, I literally just saw all the cards. So I was just like, I just saw it. Like, I knew you had a bunch. He's like, well, no, these ones are already for somebody else. So I was just like, okay. Kind of went on with my morning. We go to breakfast. And at breakfast, the principal walks up to me and he is like crying. And I remember like, cracking a joke and being like, hey, what's wrong, Mr. Thomas? Do you not like pancakes for breakfast? And I was trying to like make him laugh. And then he laughs and he goes, oh, you're such a sweet girl. I hate to have to tell you this. And I'm like, what? And he's like, your dad passed away last night. And there's times in life where everything just stops. It's almost like your brain just can't process the information. And so I remember that moment and just be like, I know he said this to me, but it can't be me. It can't be me. He's not talking about me. He has to be talking about somebody else. And so I looked up at him and I'm just like, my dad? And then he's like, yeah, I'm so sorry your dad passed away. We're trying to get you like a ticket to fly back home. And so I didn't even cry when he told me that. I remember standing up and then just walking down to the beach. And then I just started pacing back and forth. It's like my brain was empty. Everything paused in my brain. I couldn't, I don't know how to explain it. Like there was just dead air up in my head. Nothing, there was nothing going on. So all the other kids that were from Zambia, where I lived, they came down. And, they were walking with me and like everybody was just silent and people were crying. And I remember looking up at the cliff and the whole school, like it was us, the seniors and the juniors. They were just up there like looking down at me. And I remember just feeling like, man, I'm in like this fishbowl. And I think that's where that feeling had started, where like I felt like I was on display for everybody and I just couldn't have my emotions out. Because I remember talking with like the friends that had come down and like, they were just like talking about good moments with him and remembering stuff. And I remember comforting them. I feel like I was so out of my body that I was like giggling with them and like comforting them. But inside there was just like this empty feeling. It's just too hard to explain unless you've gone through it. And so, they book the flight. My best friend comes with me. I fly home. I told you guys about, the funeral and how there were all those people, and just feeling like things were no longer in our control because, the church and the government kind of took over planning of the funeral and everything. So I feel like we were just kind of there. I just felt like we were just being watched. But I think that had been a feeling for me that had started when I was younger. Because even having a dad who was in the position he was in, I always felt like we were being watched and people were ready for me and my sister to make a mistake. So I feel like that had started from before. I always felt like I was never totally able to express myself because then, you'll be told what are people going to think and all of this. So I think that started from a young age. So by the time, my dad had died, I had already grown up with that, keep it inside. Everybody's kind of watching what you're doing and then make it worse because at the funeral now people really are watching what you're doing. And then I came to college, did the nursing thing. That was a journey. I had my ups and downs with that too, because, as international students, I don't know if people know this, we can't get loans. We can't work off campus. And obviously, my mom was working hard, but there was me and my sister in college, and Southern is expensive. So, I think there was that transition of now going into school, but feeling like I've lost my foundation, just in the losing of my dad, in the instability that now it's left my mom with. I felt like there was that burden of I have to really go to school and I have to succeed because then my mom's alone and I need to be able to help take care of her. And what is she going through at home? And while I'm sitting there thinking about her, I felt like I was also drowning. So every time something would be going on at Southern, I would get overwhelmed or something, I feel like I just kept pushing it to the back burner. It was easy to be the funny person than it was to have people really pry into what was going on. And I think that was just a persona that just took over. I was like that in elementary too, because I had been bullied through elementary and none of the faculty were taking it serious. So then I developed an eating disorder because the bully would always call me fat and all this stuff and trash can. So I remember developing an eating disorder. I was anorexic for the longest time and I had to sit with faculty at a table to make sure I was eating. And so I think there were all these things by the time I was getting to Southern that I was dealing with because I had lost a parent. I had lost, at least it felt like, the funding from the church, because that's just my mom working. And then I think at some point, she lost her job too, because, church politics and all of that. And then in the spiral of losing all control of everything, the eating disorder reared its head back up. But at Southern, I never felt like it was mainly the anorexia. I feel like I wasn't eating as much as I should have, but I was working out a lot. It was easier to have control if I had a schedule that I stuck by. And it was very, regiment. And so I remember going through my freshman year and I really struggled. I really struggled my freshman year. But I also had a roommate who was struggling worse than me. So I think I was able to more focus on her problems until she moved in with the other girl that she was doing weed with. And then I was by myself there for a while. And I think when I was by myself, I had to look inside myself because I had more time to be alone. And I think that was hard. Finally being able to be alone, but almost not wanting to be alone was hard. So, I go through my freshman year. It's the beginning of sophomore year and I can't register for classes because again, I have a bill at Southern. You know, it's me and my sister going to school. And I was working, but I was working in the cafeteria. And I think I was making like maybe $5 an hour, something. It was really low. And with Southern, when you owe a bill, they take 90% of your check. So every 2 weeks, I was getting whatever the little 10% was left. That's what I was getting. And so it wasn't really anything I could do with. So by the time summer came along, during summer break, there wasn't really a student meal plan, which I obviously leaned into a lot because I didn't have any money. There was no student meal plan. So that summer, from some of the money that I had made, I think I had like $20. I got a ride to Walmart. I bought a loaf of bread and a big pack of noodles. And all I would eat would be one peanut butter and jelly sandwich a day and a pack of noodles. That was my meal a day. And it's not even because of the anorexia. It's just because I had no choice. There was nothing I could eat. I was broke. And I was staying in the dorm because, again, international student, had nowhere to go. So I remember kind of just sitting around. And one summer, a girl at the front desk was just like, oh, I really want to go. They were talking, you know, sitting at the front desk. She was talking to one of her friends and she was just like, man, I really want to go to that party, but I have to work. And she's like, I want to call out, but there's nobody that can work for me. And so I was just like, oh, I'll work for you. And she's like, oh, well, you know, you can't just work here. Like, you have to be hired by the deans. And so I remember going to the deans and being like, hey, you know, you have a worker who doesn't want to work and it looks like you guys are having problems finding subs. I don't mind helping, like, because I need work and I can only work on campus. So I don't mind helping, like, to be a fill-in. And so the deans were like, oh, actually, yeah, sure. So I went through the training and everything. And that summer I worked my butt off, Candy. I worked so hard. I was constantly at the front desk. I mean, if anybody was just like, oh, they want to call out because they want to go to the movies, I was their default call person because they knew I was going to take the shift.
Girl, there really was a whole season of Southern that I remember where it was like, do you go to class? Because you just become a front desk employee of the whole campus, like of the whole dorm. Like you were always at the desk.
Always.
And it seemed it was like summer, school year, summer again. Like it was like a while that you were there. So like
I was there permanently.
So okay, I have a question. So like you're already at this point like a year and a half or so out from when your dad passed. Right? Or almost 2 years out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I know you said that you kind of just sat in this space of trying to figure out, you didn't really know how to articulate yourself. You were also trying to process how people were responding to how you were just being yourself. Mm-hmm. So between that and then trying to keep up with financials and then making sure you're okay, your sister's okay, your mom's okay. Like, are we all okay as these women who have been left? The man in our lives has left unexpectedly, and we're just trying to keep life going. And now you're just trying to eat. I'm trying to have sustenance in my body. How are you that long out while still trying to focus on the struggles of the present day, right? Like it's not like dad passed and life is still fine. Like you have to deal with that. And also at some point you're going to have to address within yourself, I don't have my dad anymore. Like where is the processing fitting into the, how much money do I have? Does my sister have enough money? Is my mom eating back home? How much peanut butter could I possibly eat this week? Like, how is all of that fitting together in all that you're still actively trying to to just do that's in front of you?
I don't think I was processing. I think at that point, I had to have been on survival mode. I couldn't juggle both.
Yeah.
It was virtually impossible.
Yeah.
So something had to take the back seat. And that's what took the back seat. Because, and I would say that, you know, it might be an overgeneralization, but I do feel like a lot of maybe third worlders kind of we kind of process things in that way, in that at least if you're like a poorer one, you don't have time to process the things that sometimes people, mostly in the Western worlds, have time to process. You know, you're kind of just like, okay, life has to move on. Like, I have to eat. I have to feed my kid. I have to what? I kind of feel like my mom probably went through that, where I don't know when she had time to grieve because she was alone. So maybe when she was alone at night, but now she's like thinking like she has 2 kids to take care of by herself. And at the same time, we're thinking the same thing at school, where we're just like, oh, but it's only my mom. So, you know, you're not even thinking to call your mom and ask for money. You know, like the way people here will be like, well, I'll just call my parents and ask them for like $50 to be able to go here. We couldn't do that. That's not even like something I considered doing. So at that point, it was just a day-to-day survival. I couldn't pause to be like, well, dad died. I think I tried to do that my freshman year before this stage. I just couldn't. I think for a while there, I was walking around campus. I had joined the wrong group of people, but I still had common enough sense to not go all the way doing crazy stuff. And so I would walk around with like I think it was a Dasani bottle. It's like a water bottle. And it would have like the Smirnoff ice. And it would have like a little bit of it. And I'd just be like trying to sip it. Because then I would always remember people being like, oh, like, you know, if you drink enough of this, like, eventually the problems just melt away, you know? That didn't work for me. First of all, I thought the stuff tasted disgusting. And there are not enough like sips in the world to where like it would go away. So I was never able to get drunk just because I hate that feeling of not being in control. Again, that's probably how the eating disorder comes in, because I just don't like that feeling. So that stopped because I remember Victor one time was like, what are you drinking? You're always drinking water. And so he takes it and he like tastes it. He's like, Tina, what is this? And so he's just like, no, you can't like be doing it. So he's like pulls me aside and we have this whole talk. And I was like, honestly, I don't really drink it. I just need like a distraction. You know, you almost want to distract from your own life. So after I sat down and I had talked to him, crazy enough, I got really sick, like really sick. And this happened to be about the time that H1N1, was it H5N1? It's one of those. It's a bird flu.
H1N1. Bird flu. I remember that was while we were at Southern.
There was. I got sick, Candy, like sick. Like they quarantined me in my room. They only allowed my sister, because my sister was like, can I get permission to come and take care of my sister? Because I was throwing fevers. It's almost like I had COVID before COVID. I was about to say,
that is bad. COVID before COVID.
Yeah.
Quarantine.
Literally.
Nobody can go in
patient zero. There I am. Yep. And so I was just like, dude, do I have H1N1? But like nobody else had it around us. So I was like, where am I going to get it from? I go nowhere. I don't have a car. I'm stuck on campus. So where am I getting this from? But I was so sick. And I remember my sister coming and she would like open the windows and like chill me and then shut the windows. Like she had to do that all night, like to try to get me better. Yeah, it was insane. And they wouldn't even allow, like they would have to put the food in front of the door and the person would leave. My sister would open the door and bring the food in and close the door. Like we were both, because they told her once you get in there, you cannot leave for a few days. So she was in there with me for like 4 days. And so after I had gotten sick, for some reason, that was like a light bulb where I was just like, you know, all this other stuff just isn't for me. So I'm just going to focus on school. and getting through this. I had to get in the nursing program. There was no wiggle room. Like, I didn't have room for error. I needed to have the grades that would get me into the nursing program because I'm on a student visa. I only have a certain amount of time, and we don't have any money. Like, let's be real. So I'm here on borrowed time. That's all I kept thinking. I'm here on borrowed time. I have to get into the nursing program so that I can finish and like be a burden off my mom's back. So after that, I feel like everything completely changed. I didn't have a roommate for the rest of the year. And then we fall into that summer where I was going into my sophomore year, the one where I was eating like, just noodles and a sandwich. And so doing that, I start working at the front desk, and I was there so much that the deans offered me a job, like a permanent job, instead of being like a sub, because I was a sub. But I was there so much that they offered me the job to work there. And so I started working there. And this is probably why you saw me so much, because even during the school year, I'm still trying to pick up hours because I need to help my mom clear off this bill. And I felt like I was drowning on every front because I'm trying so hard to get the grades that I need to get into nursing school. I have to work because I think by this time, sophomore year, I probably owed like what, $16,000? And I'm just like, for my front desk job, which was maybe like 7 something an hour, maybe might have been 6 something. Again, it's like a drop in the ocean. So it's like I'm seeing like a check of maybe 150 go towards school, or a check of like 200 go towards school. So it felt daunting, but in my mind, I was just like, I'm doing the best I can. I can't work off campus. Sorry, excuse me. I'm doing the best I can with what I have. And so at some point, Dean Krause, either she noticed that I was just getting thinner, or I'm not really sure, because I never complained about it. I'd always just work, do what I needed to do. But somehow it seems like the deans zoned in that I might be a kid that is help. And so I remember Dean Krause actually within that summer, she started randomly bringing me food. I didn't ask. She'd just bring me a plate of food and bring me like this drink. She used to make these pina coladas. Obviously, they were virgin. She would mix like orange juice with like a coconut creamer. Oh, and it was just the best drink ever. I will never forget that drink. And she would feed me. Like, I would know that at least while I was working, I was getting another meal that day. And she did not know about me just eating noodles and a peanut butter and jelly. She had no idea, but I knew. I was like, every shift I work, if Dean Krause is here, I will have a meal. And that's not trying to put down the other deans. They might just not have been like clued in. And so she started feeding me. And then when they hired me permanently, but the school year had started, but then I had my meal plan back. So then, I'd like grab food, but even with the meal plan, I was grabbing like very amounts of food because I didn't want to blow through the meal plan. I was just like, I can't blow through it because I have no money. And so I'd be eating smaller meals. But then where I found like my stress relief is that I had to go to the gym. So what I would do is work, go to class, go to bed, wake up. And I think it was like at 5 or 5:30, I'd be out. I'd be at the gym till about 6:37, go get breakfast, and then classes would start. I had to have that, like, I couldn't veer away from it, like to the point where it was a problem. And I was fully aware that it was a problem because of the history with the anorexia. I knew that the exercise had just taken over from the eating disorder. And so I had to do it. I literally was to a point where if I did not exercise that morning, like let's say I would never usually wake up late, but if there was something to where I couldn't exercise that morning, if I had a test and I'd, study instead of going to work out, I'd be antsy the whole day. It would play in my mind that I have to go to the gym constantly. Like I could not veer from that thought. It was like, I need to go to the gym. I have to work out. Like it just played on my mind until I would go to the gym and I would do like an hour workout. Then the feeling, like the itchy feeling and the crawly feeling would finally subside. So I was fully aware that it was a problem, but in my mind, I'm just like, there's too many pieces moving right now. I cannot get help for that because at this point, I'm just trying to survive and it's keeping me sane. And then on top of that, in the evenings, I would play sports. Because again, I think the movement and stuff, it just kept my mind like going. And so towards the end of that year, no, it might have been in the middle or something. At some point, the deans asked me if I wanted to be an RA. Because again, they saw me so much. I was at that front desk all the time that the deans were like, hey, would you be interested in becoming an RA? And in my head, I'm like, heck yeah, it pays more. Like, yes, absolutely. And so I became an RA, which was even better because then now I was able to do schoolwork in the daytime, really focus on school. And then in the evening is when I was working. But the good thing with that is like all I had to do was have my door open so that I was available to the students. So they wouldn't come all the time. So I was able to still study at the same time. And then when they'd come in, like pause my studying, talk to them and stuff, and then go back to studying. So, but in doing that, again, I was also in the dean's orbit constantly. I was also around BR. You remember BR, worked as the office manager. And so as I'm, working with the deans and stuff like that as an RA, I remember one summer, I couldn't register for classes. And what I was doing was during the summer, I was also taking like a pretty big load of classes because I needed to graduate as fast as possible. I didn't have the money. And so, but the problem is I'd run into summer and then I hadn't cleared off my regular school bill. So then I couldn't, you couldn't move forward. And so I remember one summer just sitting there and being like, all right, I'm going to work really hard this summer, try to get this bill down because I think by now we had reached into the 20s, 20,000s. And I was just like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way I'm going to be able to register for classes because my sister also owes like $16,000. I owe a couple of, $1,000. I was like, there's no way I'm not going to be able to register for school, but I'm just going to keep working through the summer and hope for the best. And by this summer, because I'm an RA, so I was making a little bit more money, but also somehow my sister had found a job off campus. Yes, I'm fully aware that that was possibly illegal. But we were cleaning this old people's house and we were helping them. I think what happened was my sister must have started out just like helping them or something. And then when Charity graduated, she introduced me to them and she's like, hey, I've been like helping this older couple clean their house and stuff on Fridays and like they'll give me $20. And so I continued that. So I was just like, all right, every Friday I have $20, but I didn't have a car. And these people lived maybe 6 miles away from campus. So I would borrow a bike and I would ride all the way there, clean up their house and ride back to campus. And I did this for the longest time. And so I was guaranteed at least $20, so I was just like, if I can't eat or whatever, I know that these guys will give me $20 for cleaning their house. And so that was nice because I felt like I had that. And so I remember sometimes my friends would be like, oh, we're going to go to China Kitchen and get something to eat. And then we're going to go to the movies. And I'm sitting there going, okay, if they go Friday after I've cleaned, I could maybe get one thing from China Kitchen because by this time, like, I think it was like either $9 for like rice and General Tso's chicken. And so I was like, so if I use like the $9 there, I'd have a little bit left over, but I'm not sure if I'd be able to go with them to the movies because I can't really afford that. So it was constantly like that, that game of being like, what can I afford this week? Or maybe my sister needs this money more, or I'd meet people who were in a worse off position than I am, believe it or not, and I would give them the $20. And so one time, BR, she was the office manager. She was on the board of something at Southern, and I guess she realized that I wasn't registered for school, and so she was talking to me. She's like, what's going on? Like, and I was like, yeah, I can't get registered. Like, I owe a bill, but like I'm picking up shifts because even in the dorm on the summer, they still needed an RA to like check people to make sure that people were in because some people were taking summer classes. So I stayed and I worked as an RA, but I also worked at the front desk as well, because remember, I was trained in it. And as an RA, you can do both. Working at the front desk, like if they needed somebody to fill in, you could do it. So again, summer, I'm right back at the front desk, but now I'm also working as an RA to put the money towards school. And so I was talking to her, and I guess she went and talked to the nursing department, and we're like, hey, like if my husband donates a certain amount of money, can you guys grant her a scholarship to meet that amount of money? By this time, I'd gotten into the nursing program. I think I got in the end of my freshman year or something. And so the nursing department looked at my grades and they're like, yeah, she's got good grades. And yeah, so we will meet the amount that you guys give. And I think they were giving $2,500. So then the nursing department gave $2,500. So I at least have $5,000 each semester, equaling $10,000 would go to the school bill. So because those guys were giving me that, I was still working. And then my mom was like trickling in money. The school let me register. So I was like, oh, thank you, Lord. I was able to get registered, go through school. And now I'm really working my butt off because, I mean, there's people that are investing in me. Obviously, BR didn't expect that money back, but there was that pressure of like, I have to do well. Like there's people that have put faith in me, and I'm being given this chance that not many people are getting. And so, again, working hard to go through the nursing department, working, and there was just never time to like really address the fact that my dad had died. So again, by this time, I still haven't worked through it. Junior year comes, and I was asked to be a student dean. So I'm slowly working my way up the ranks, you know, and student deans got paid more. And I remember the deans, when they called me in for the interview, they're just like, you know, we're just worried with you being a student dean because you're not confrontational. Not in the least. I mean, I think even now I'm still not very confrontational, but I'm more confrontational, especially becoming a mom now. Yes, I might say something to you, but then I wasn't. And so they were like, you know, we're worried about you becoming a student dean and not being very confrontational. This job, it needs you to be confrontational because you're going to have to approach people and be like, hey, you can't be doing that and all of that. And I was like, I think I can do it. But God knew better because I could do it and I learned how to do it. But he put these two other people as student deans as well. I am fully convinced that God is the one that set it up there, because I had Camilla and Tina England as the other student deans. And I know you know them, but some of your viewers might not know them. I mean, these two have some of the strongest personalities you can ever meet. I mean, they took no nonsense. And so we would always, yeah, they were
the flashbacks that I have. You already knew, like when Camille came down the hallway, for any reason, you were like, look, whatever we're doing, just shut it down. Just shut it down. Stop. Because it's not even worth it at this point. Because she come in, her face exactly how it is, and she looking at you dead in your eyes until you feel too uncomfortable. She even trying to lie about nothing. Okay, yo, no, girl. Ooh, to this day, I remember her face.
Those two, he knew. And so anytime there was time for like discipline or something like that, I was still very firm. Like people knew they couldn't get one over me, but I also wasn't going to be like, I wouldn't call it harsh, but they were a lot more harsher than I was. And so like when people got in trouble, they would typically want to get in trouble with me versus those two. But then also because those two knew that I was more of the weaker link, they would like be close. You know what I mean? Like they had my back no matter what. And they would like give me these pep talks like, you know, Tina, I know you got to go in there. You just got to be firm. You got to be what? Don't let them walk all over you. And so we do like these little pep talks. We do these little pep talks before anything ever was happening. But I mean, as the year went through, I got better and I was, you know, it just became like natural. Second place to be like, hey, like you can't do that. I think I just always did it more in a way of like, I'd add humor, but I'd still be serious. So people knew like I'm doing it with love, but it's still the rule. So we're still going to have to follow through it. But got through that. My senior year, same thing. I was an RA they hired me again. They thought I did an okay of a job. So I got hired again. And by this time, as an RA, I felt like it was even less time to focus on me and like what was truly going on inside, because now, I was a student dean. I had the responsibility of being a student dean. So that meant that I was working in the dean's office some afternoons when they weren't there. I was also still working in the evenings, if I was on duty that evening. And then by this time, we were also doing like rides to the airport if a student needed a ride, a student needed a ride to the hospital, a student needed a mental health ride at 3 or whatever in the morning. You were there. And we'd sign up. Like there were some people, they were like, if you want to be a driver for these things, please sign up. And I would sign up again because I need the money. Whatever job I can get to help ease this burden, I will take it. So I was doing all of that, still in the nursing program, which the nursing program is its own trauma. I mean, it's hard, obviously. It's nursing. But somehow,
Girl.
God was good. I was able to pass it. Yes. And yes. I was nervous that I wouldn't be able to get through the last part, because I think your bill had to be cleared off for you to get your grades. And I needed my grades to sit for the boards. And I was just like, how is this going to work? I can't sit for the boards because I haven't paid off my bill. And then somehow, through God's mercy, one of the faculty from my high school had reached out to me. She's like, hey, how's it going? How's school going? I'm like, school's going good. I'm getting good grades. I'm working hard. And then she's like, how is financially? Are you doing okay? And I was just like, well, I didn't really want to tell her because I didn't want to embarrass my mom. For me, I think I'm pretty much an open book. But there's a shame in needing help. I don't know how else to put it. There is a shame in needing help. I don't know if it's just my culture or what, but there's a shame and there's a vulnerability in needing help. People don't want to ask for help because then you're open to people scrutinizing you. You're open to people laughing at you. And so I didn't want to embarrass my mom, but at the same time, I didn't want to lie. So I was just like, yeah, well, we're working through it. I just need to clear this bill so that I can write my boards. And then she's just like, can you give me the number for the financial department? And I was like, why? And she's just like, well, I just want to write you a check, just to help out. It's not going to be anything big. Don't feel ashamed or anything like that. And I was like, honestly, thank you. Whatever you can give will help. And so she pays money, and then I get an email, and the financial people are like, oh, hey, your grades are cleared to be, you can have your grades. And I'm just like, what? And so she didn't clear the whole bill, but I guess she put towards it enough to where they felt comfortable releasing my grades so that I could sit for board. Thank you, Lord. I sat for boards, and then they had something called an OPT, which you get 1 year to practice whatever you studied in the United States. And that means you can work off campus. And you can legally work off campus for that 1 year. The money all comes to you. Obviously, you still pay taxes. I still paid into Social Security, which is crazy because I still paid into Social Security even working as an international student at Southern. Anyway, that's an interesting thought. But yes, it's very interesting. So even working under my OPT, I was able to make money, and that money was able to go back to Southern to pay off the stuff that I owed so that I could finish through the bachelor's program. And so I moved off campus, I believe, after my associates, towards the end of it or something. I don't know. It was the end of the year. We weren't going to be, RAs and student deans anymore. So I'd moved off campus. But, I was lucky that the deans were okay with me still working as a student dean. So I would still live off campus, but I'd come in to work. And so I'm editing out all the summers, because even summer, at some point, I wasn't able to stay in the dorm anymore. I had to live off campus because I couldn't afford to stay in the dorm. Like it was too expensive and I couldn't afford it. So I moved off campus. And luckily for me and my sister, Dr. Trim would go home to the islands every summer. And so he'd be like, hey, you guys can stay at my house rent free. All I ask is that you pay whatever the electricity bill is for whatever you're using. Girl, God was looking at every step of the way because he opened so many doors. And so my sister had gotten a car, and so I'd borrow her car and drive back from work to and forth to campus, or Dr. Trim would leave his car and let me drive his car to and from campus because, again, he's in the islands. So those were the summers. It was typically that, or I'd stay at this other house. Like if Dr. Trim wasn't leaving that summer, we'd stay at this other house, and it was pretty far from campus. Do you remember where Little Debbie's was, the factory? Yes.
Yep.
Now
I do.
Further back than that, there's like the Little Debbie's Health Center.
Yep.
Yeah, way back.
By the way, guys, we literally went to school like right next to the Little Debbie's factory.
Yes.
So we have very special ties with Little Debbie. Let's just
very
say that.
Special. You woke up with the smell.
The smell of honey buns. Yes. Wafting on your way to health class. Like that was the best part. You're on your way to a health class and just diabetes was just
it was just in the air,
swimming through the air.
Lovely.
Insulin was on a high. It was great, except not.
Well, I mean, since I couldn't afford it, at least I could smell it. There's a blessing in it, right? I couldn't afford it, so I'd get the whiff of the honey buns, blueberry muffins.
Yes.
But they lived way back in there. I mean, they lived past the Chattanooga airport.
Oh, wow.
Like the little small one we have back there. The Closure. Yeah. And so I would ride my bike from way back in there to campus to work and then ride my bike back. Yes. I remember one time I had worked a late shift and it ended at midnight and I had to ride my bike there. Like, how else am I going to get back? So midnight, I'd be riding my bike. I remember just being like, Lord, just help me make it home. Like, there is no sidewalk. I'm on the side of the road. It's dark. I am black. I mean,
in Chattanooga. Oh my!
I am black in Chattanooga. I just, Lord,
we're in the woods. Listen, we was in the woods.
I don't know how I survived,
girl. The Lord, because first off, can I just commend your like cardio? Like your stamina is really impressive to me because I had my bike senior year and the way I was huffing and puffing from the village just to get to the music building. Oh my gosh, girl, I couldn't do it. I was just like, whoo. Oh, and really the only reason why I had it is because people found out that I was Kevin's sister from Pentatonics and they were so new at the time that I was like, I cannot have these people follow me all the way from Brock Hall to the village, so I gotta book it. But I could barely book. I couldn't book anything. It was a slow and puff pedal to the point where I would fall over often and end up walking the bike. So like the fact that you could do this, I'm in awe. I'm in awe.
No, it's because I had to do it. I feel like the body, I feel like it knows. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's kind of like when you're sitting at home and you have to pee. Your bladder won't hold when you're just sitting at home and have to pee. It's like I'm giving you a solid 3 seconds to get to the bathroom. If you don't get there in time, you're on your own.
Girl.
But when and you're just like, there's nowhere to perform, you could hold your bladder for like a solid hour or two. It's the same thing. It's like the body just knows.
Yes, girl. Clearly my body knew nothing. It did not know. It was not in tune with the danger that I thought I was in. It was like my body was like, you're really fine. You just walk. You'll be fine. But you, girl, you were training for a triathlon. Also, didn't even know it.
I had been working out every day.
This is true.
I mean, when I moved off campus, I would run. On top of going to the gym, I would still run. Like, that's how far the obsession was. I had to go do the run. I would run through the Greenway. I would run to the old people home, like Greenbrier Cove. Yeah, so past the Imagination State, like all through there, run back, and then go to the gym.
Then
go to the gym. Yes. So I'd go on the gym, go on the treadmill again.
Girl.
And then do a full workout.
I'm tired.
And then go about my day.
I'm
so by the
tired.
time I'm riding my bike, all those miles, I was blessed to even have a bike. like, that was the blessing. It felt amazing to like not have to run on my two legs.
Girl.
There's wheels now.
There's
like,
wheels.
We're making progress.
This is true.
And this was a free bike that somebody had left. You know, like when people leave Southern, they graduate and the bike's been sitting downstairs for like 5 years.
Yep.
Yeah, the deans were just like, hey, these bikes have been here forever. Take your pick. Girl,
Yep.
The blessing.
Girl.
Let me tell you.
Girl.
The blessing. And the way I used to dumpster dive at Southern, because at the end of the year, all the kids would like give away their clothes.
Yes.
Where was Tina? Shopping.
Girl,
okay, this was my moment.
Yes, same. I have so many clothes that I got from those boxes at the end of the year when seniors were leaving, international students were leaving, and I was like, I've been eyeing that shirt for a long periodically time, and I'm just so glad that you don't want it no more. Hey, because I will gladly receive this free 99. I will. Can I just say, like, girl, the thread so far in your story is how much you are being provided for despite the loss of a father. Like, the weight of having had your dad, who clearly was a in a financial way, a big help for your family, and to lose him immediately only for these small moments that ended up making big impact to sustain you through school in a way that you didn't really explicitly. It's not like you were like, God, give us all the money. Like, you were trying to put in the work, and then behind the scenes, it's like he was putting people in you guys' path to, you know, I just have a feeling I need to feed you. Oh, I just have a feeling I need to add to your bill so you don't have to be working as hard. Or I'm going to provide you a job that you didn't ask for, that is going to pay you more than you were looking for. Like, the way God showed up as Father when you didn't even have the words to ask for that is impeccable to me. And I just keep hearing that through the thread of what you've been saying, is how active God was in the most, it was like subtly gargantuan. Like, it was just like this little act that meant a big difference in what you were doing and what you were trying to accomplish through school. So I just had to point that out because I have found that to be really impressive so far in your story.
No, he 1,000% came through. And what is crazy, at least, it's like I saw his hand moving. Like, I couldn't even deny it. There was no way to deny that God's hand was moving. But I think because of everything that had happened, I had stepped away from everything, not everything Christian, but everything almost Christ related. Like, I knew that he was God. I knew that he was in charge, but I was so hurt about everything that I was like, I think I just need a break. I just need a break because I don't understand what you're doing. I'm confused. I don't feel like I can trust you. And I'm wondering if, I remember thinking about this at Southern a lot, and I'm like, I wonder if the relationship that I thought I had for you was one that was built on the shoulders of my parents. And so now that I'm here alone in this situation, and my dad's shoulders aren't there, my mom isn't there to make sure I read the Bible or have worship all together, it was just me and him, you know? And I was just like, the relationship isn't there. That was my first wake up to be like, wow. I was a pastor's kid, and a lot of my relationship with God, at least that I thought was with him, was just something that my parents had built. It was them saying, hey, you gotta go to court. Hey, you need to make sure we're on time for Sabbath schools. Hey, you're constantly hearing it. God's taking care of you. God's providing. God's doing this. God's doing that. But when I was younger, like that was just an automatic thing. I could tell you these things because I hear it all the time from my parents. But when I was in this situation, it's like God had to become real. He had to become real with me. The relationship had to be me and him. It was now on my shoulders. And so with everything that was going on, I was just like, I was too overwhelmed. And I was just like, I can't try to muster a relationship with you when I'm just so hurt. But like what you're saying, like his hand just kept moving. And it was to a point where I could not deny it. I was like, this is not a coincidence. This is him. Like there was it's like he just kept proving himself. And it was like, he's not pushing himself on me. He was just like, I know the language you speak and I speak it too. And so he just kept working. And it's like my faith just kept slowly getting built and built and built because I was just like, this is God. Like this is the God that they're talking about. I'm just getting to experience him now for myself. And so, I mean, that was still a slow, it's progress. But I graduate my senior year. We're done with the bachelor's program. And guess what? I can use my OPT again for my bachelor's. And so I'm working that 1 year, living off campus now. And there's just so many different dynamics even with that. But by this time, my mom's gotten remarried, which I feel like was a hard place for me. There was just I was really close with my dad. But also, I guess just the way he died, I feel like there was so much that was left unsaid. So when my mom got remarried, it was just a lot of, oh man, like, I think that was the first hit of, wow, he's gone. Like life is moving on. Like I'm going to meet this person because he was coming to visit my mom. I'm going to meet this person. And that's my mom's new husband. And I remember talking to my mom and just her being like, I was just so lonely. And I think that's the only way I was able to move past that because I was just like, she is lonely. Like we're here. She's there by herself. Everybody deserves to have some companionship. And so when they came to visit, I believe it was my bachelor year because my mom wasn't even able to come to my associate's graduation because again, there's no money and she would have to apply for the visa and all these things that there was just no money for. But she did come to my bachelor's graduation, which was great. She missed it by a day, but she came after and I was extremely happy. And I got to meet him. And so it was just navigating all of that while still not coming to terms with the fact that my dad had died. And during all of this, even at my whole time at Southern, I think I struggled with relationships, even at Southern, because I don't know how to explain it. I call it turning on. At least that's how I explain it to my husband, Cody. I always say it's almost like when I got around people, I would just turn on, the persona would turn on. I have to be funny, have to make you laugh. I want to sit down and listen to you talk because if you're talking, then you don't have to know about me. You know what I mean? You don't have to know the personal stuff about me. And what's most important is I don't have to feel the rejection from you. And just in that, even when you tell people small things about yourself, if somebody kind of brushes it off or whatever, it still hurts. And all of that was just stuff that I didn't want to deal with. So it's easy to be the funny person because nobody's asking the funny person personal questions. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. The comedian is never asked what they're feeling, what they're going through. They're not asked deep questions. They're there so that they can be funny. It's like they're there to serve a purpose. Nobody wants to know the stuff after that. So that's kind of how I felt like my experience at Southern was, where I was invited to so many people's things. I was invited to a party here, invited to this, I was invited to that, but I was never able to just go and sit. People would be like, oh no, come here, like, to crack jokes. And, if I sat down and I was quiet, well, what's wrong? Are you depressed? And, come here, like, the life of the party. That's what I kept being told. The life of the party. If you're not saying anything, then the party's boring. I got told that so much.
Girl.
When Southern for me was like, I felt like I was constantly on that. When I finally left Southern, I shut down. Like, I don't even remember if people saw me. Like, I was in my room a lot. I just wanted to keep to myself because it was easier. It was easier than like having to go to your party and be turned on.
Right.
Because then it drains me. And then you're sitting there and you're always second guessing. You're like, well, am I actually friends with this person, or am I just invited because I'm funny and I'm entertaining, and they know that if they don't invite me to their party, people will think it's a boring party,
right.
So then walls started to go up in that regard too, because I became this thing of like, well, they're not really my friends. I'm just here so that I can
free entertainment.
I'm free entertainment. Exactly. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, Mom, I think I'm ready to come home. I've done my bachelor's. And my mom was just like, yeah, no, you can't come home. You have to do your master's. And just for starters, I never wanted to do nursing. Never. Medicine was just not in my wheelhouse. That was my sister's dream, to do medicine. For me, it just wasn't. I don't think I ever had a nursing body, a bone in my body. Like,
wait, what did you want to do?
I had wanted to go into stuff like PR, public communications. That's where I wanted to be. I even my dad, before he died, he had applied for me to go to Union in Nebraska because that's where my other friends were, and he applied for the program, like my major, to be communications. But when he died, he went with that dream, and my mom was like, no, you have to go. Yeah, he packed up that dream with him and was like, well, we're just going to bury that right next to him.
Yes.
And so my mom was just like, no, you have to go and you have to do nursing. Like, you have to have a job that you can fall back on. Now that I'm older, I see why she did that, because if she died, I'd have no other parent. I have to have a job that we could stand on our 2 feet and be okay.
Yeah.
So she pushed for nursing, and she was the one paying for school. So I'm coming here to do nursing. And so nursing just I didn't want to do it. And so when she was just like, well, your master's, like, you have to do your nursing master's. And I was just like, no, I don't want to do it. I did the bachelor's, which is what we agreed on. But for my master's, if I do my master's, I want to do something else. Like, I want an MBA. I want to do something in communications. Like, I want to go into that sector that I felt like I would thrive in, and like that would give me, pleasure. Like waking up every morning and be like, woohoo, I'm going to my job, to do what this is, and I think I'd be good at it. That didn't end up happening, because then my mom was just like, no, you have to do your master's and then you can come home, because what if you leave and you come to visit and then they don't let you come back? Like, immigration's getting harder and all of that. And so I just felt like trapped, because I didn't even want to do nursing in the first place. And so now it's my master's program and I'm ready to go home. And she's just like, no, like, you have to go there, like, finish, get your master's degree. And I remember my sister being like, no, just go ahead and get the master's degree in whatever you want. Like, you've done the degree that mom had wanted you to do, and now it's time for you to spread your wings and kind of do your own thing. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm still broke. I still can't work here. And, and she's mom, as an African kid, literally, I feel like you're almost not allowed to do stuff for yourself, like in terms of like, making decisions until you get married. Like they have to pass the mantle of responsibility onto someone else. Like,
why you say this? Tina knows good and well I am very single and not dating, and I live with my parents right now, one of which is very Nigerian. So the fact that you would even say that out loud on the mic is very, very real.
I mean, it's true. Because, like, if I could be right now this age, grown as we are. And if I was living with my mom, I bet you money. She would be like, okay, Titi, you need to be back home by 7:00.
Listen.
There's nothing you need to be doing out there that you can't do here at home. So, like, there's no... That when my sister was all like, go do what you want to do. By this time, my sister is working.
Right.
Okay. She's like on her OPT with her master's program. She's a nurse practitioner. So she's in a different world. She's working for that year.
Wait, did you explain what OPT stood for? What is OPT? Yeah. Do you know what it stands for?
I don't know what the actual words are. I just know that it lets us international people work.
Oh.
OPT.
Immigration. Come on, Google.
It's optional practical training.
Oh, okay.
So you get practical training in whatever you studied while you were here in the United States. Yeah.
So it's not like an internship or sort? No.
Just because you could do your OPT at like a local hospital here, and local hospitals aren't going to help you get your green card to become a nurse here.
Gotcha.
So you could just work for that year and then bye. You go back to your country and call it a day.
Right.
And so you'd literally have to do something like a specific type of engineering where not many people do that. So then after your OPT, the company's just like, hey, we want to hire this person. And then they will take it to the government and be like, we would like a visa, a work visa for them, because not many Americans have this degree. And this is a skill set that not many people have.
Gotcha.
And then the government will be like, yeah, sure, we will give you a working, your papers for working. But with nursing, it's a oversaturated area here for nursing.
Right.
There's just no way. Erling will look at me and be like, yes, this is the immigrant that we do want. Let's go ahead and fill out that paperwork.
Right. Like, how many African nurses do you know?
Exactly. It's not.
It's it's a surplus.
The pickings, they're slim. And so I start the master's program. I apply for the master's program. Thank you, Lord. I get in. Thank you, Dr. Gad, for standing in for me too, so I start the master's program, and I'm working at the same time because, remember, I've done my bachelor's, so I can use my OPT. Doing my master's. This time, my sister's working as a nurse practitioner. She meets her husband now, and I remember creating a dating profile using the same Plenty of Fish that she was using, because I was making fun of her for using a dating website. Lo and behold, I found Cody on said dating website. So it all worked out. But I met him, we're dating. And one of the biggest things for me was I was like, I will not marry somebody for a green card.
Oh,
I can't. I didn't want anyone to be able to hold it over my head that they brought me here. And it's like some of my friends, in my heart of hearts, I think that they did marry for a green card. They might love the person now, but I think that they did marry for a green card. And I've heard some of their husbands, like, they would say, like, I'm the reason you're here and stuff like that. And I was like, I never want to hear somebody say that, like, ever want to hear them be able to say that to me. And so when I was dating Cody, I honestly wanted to work for the United Nations, because I was just like, I'm so far into the master's program. I'm going to get my master's in nursing, and then I want to work for the UN. I want to go to another country and just work, And so when the earthquake had happened in Haiti, I had snuck off to Haiti. I say snuck off because I didn't tell my mother that I was going. And I charged it to the school. Put it on my mom's tab with the school.
Stop it right now.
So serious.
First off, I did not know you went to Haiti.
I sure did.
What?
We sure did.
Wait. Now
The
you're
nursing
putting it
department
on
was
Southern's
doing a
tab.
trip.
Can I just needed to
listen.
Girl, that's for all of us. Listen, hey, all the money y'all took, we take a little back, okay?
No, put it on their tab, but I had to pay them back. You know,
but I like that we put it on their tab. Listen,
I sure did, because it was the nursing department, and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna do a mission trip to Haiti because the earthquake just happened. If people want to go," and I was like, "Please, I would really love to go. I've been in the United States too long. I'm ready to get out of the country. I want to go help people that I felt like actually would help."
okay.
And so I remember just talking to my sister, and I'm like, "Charity, I really want to go to Haiti. Like, I want to go on this mission trip. I know Mom's going to say no." And then Charity was just like, "It's okay, just go." And I was like, I got permission from my sister. I'm out. I was on a flight the next thing with the group. I told my friends, I was like, "Please don't post any pictures or tag me. You can post, don't tag me, because then my mom will see it." Well, when I got back, somebody had tagged me, and I got a call from my mom. She's just like, "Why does it look like you're in Africa?" And I was like, I went to Haiti 2 weeks ago to help with the earthquake stuff." She was not happy with me, but it all worked out. I was able to go to Haiti. So by the time I was done with the master's program, I wanted to go work for the UN. I was just like, I can go back to Haiti. I can go to all these other countries and work. I have the medical background now. I can work in other capacities. That had been my plan. But I met Cody. This is a white guy who rock climbs from Florida. He's not trying to go work for the UN anywhere. So when I remember I had gotten my master's. I was right at the end of the program. And I think I had to do one final piece, but they wouldn't let me do it because I owed a bill, an astronomical bill, because somewhere along the way, my mom and my sister had agreed to they would pay 75% for the master's, and then I would pay the 25% because, I didn't have any money. My sister was working as a nurse practitioner, and my mom was sending what she could, but she was getting tired and older. And so my sister, I told her, "Hey, I will go ahead and pay the rest, and Tina will take her piece." Well, somewhere along the way, I don't know what happened. My sister had stopped paying, and so the bill just started to rack up. And so by the time I realized what was happening, I was just like, all right, I owe $24 grand. There's just no way. There's no way I'm going to be able to pay this off. And so I remember just sitting there stressed, and Cody's looking at me like, "What is going on?" And I was just like, "I just have this bill, and I'm just so ready to be done with this program because, I didn't really want to do it, but I have to do it because I need to be able to work and help my mom because, my dad's not there anymore." So, and so he's like, "Well, what's going on?" So I was embarrassed, but I was just like, I owe money to the school, and, I'm working as a nurse. So majority of my money is going there, but I'm also living off campus. So now I'm paying for rent. I'm paying for phone bills. I'm paying for regular things that Americans are paying for. And I was just like, I don't know how to also pay off this school thing. Well, I can't remember how long I had been dating Cody, but then he's just like, "It's fine, I'll pay for it." It still shocked me to even say it till today, because I was just like, was I a sugar baby? Is that what that was?
What is happening? What is this?
I was a sugar baby? Because, we're the same age. I think I'm 6 months older than him. So I was like, am I in the twilight zone? Because I think I owed $23,000 or $24,000. I am not married to this man. I am not engaged to him. We were just dating.
Listen.
I mean, he could have paid for that, and I could have done a Houdini and been on the quickest flight back to my country after I got that degree.
I was about to say.
Okay. You know, he would have been on like one of those shows where he's just like, yeah, I was dating this like foreigner and they took me for all my money. He could have been one of those people.
Interviewed by Dr. Phil. It's like, do you understand that you were catfished? Do we need to go and send people from my team to find the catfish?
They would have never found me.
I know.
No.
I know they wouldn't.
If you think you can find a Nigerian prince, me, you would not have been able to find me. What?
Listen.
I would have gone into the sub-Sahara of Africa. You would have never found me. Especially since I knew I'd never be able to pay this man back. Are you crazy?
I can't. I'm crying.
Yeah. And so he's just like, no. He's like, you don't owe me. It's just, you know, and then my sister, because, you know, we pay for everything. Girl, when I said I saw that number go to 0, I was shocked. I was like, first of all, how do people have this kind of money? Like, just there, like, just extra money to where they're like, it's okay, like, I'll help you with school. You know, now that I think about it, I feel like he should have gotten a tax write-off. Like, helped African women finish school. I wonder if it's too late. But, so he...
I mean, you can't amend those taxes. I'm just saying. IRS, can we talk? Can we just talk? Like,
we just... I could just go back. Yes. That's what I'm telling you. This man. Whoa. Candy, when I say whoa,
girl,
saw that number go to 0, I called my sister and I said, yo, Cody cleared my bill. And she's just like, what? And she's like thanking him. She's like, thank you, Cody. Thank you. Like, I'll pay you back. I was like, she will pay you back. Me, you said, I don't owe you nothing, right? Like, if I'm in the clear, I'll take it. So life goes on. Cody and I end up getting married because, you know, we actually like each other and he's cool. And I mean, he's invested in me at this point. Let's be serious. But, you know, get married. Life is lifing. And then I get pregnant with our first kid. And I thought that getting pregnant would be harder for us just because I had endometriosis. And I think it did. It took like, I would say a year, because we got married in 2016. She was born in 2018. So it took a year. And then got pregnant. And then I feel like this is kind of the beginning of the tailspin, because I feel like when I had met Cody, it started to feel like I could breathe again, because Cody is just, I don't know how to explain him. He's a presence. Like, I didn't have to be funny. I didn't have to be another person. I could just be myself. I could sit there in the silence and he would let me. You know, it wasn't a problem to him. There was nothing wrong with me if I was quiet. He would just enjoy the silence with me. And for me, that was so different because it's not what I was used to. And then also, dating at Southern was kind of tough because the pickings were slim. And then on top of the pickings being slim, I was called like an Oreo. Like I
was about to say the pickings were also racist.
Yeah. The pickings were slim and then the pickings were racist. And then like you're sitting here and people are just like, oh, you're an Oreo, like you're white on the inside, black on the outside. And I'm just like, oh, it's exhausting because I was just somebody who liked what I liked. I loved country music. I had been listening to country music since I was a child. Okay, my parents loved Patsy Cline. Like I'm yes. Like those were, you would find me sitting there just listening to Patsy Cline, Barbara Streisand. I mean,
come on.
But that was what I was used to. That's what I grew up with. So people would sit there and I'd be listening to country music and they'd be like, oh, girl, you are like the whitest Black person ever. And like, I think after a while, I just started to like ignore people because I was just like, I'm not changing the music I listen to because you don't like it. And I think that was another point of contention, I think, at Southern, because I think even with my people pleasing and feeling like I had to be funny, I still had that thing of, yeah, I'm not going to do that if I don't want to. Like there were boundaries where I was just like, yeah, that's a hard line for me. I'm not changing the music that I like to listen to. I'm not going to change the way I dress. If I find it comfortable, I'm going to do it. I remember when I graduated and I wanted to go to New York City, so I booked a ticket. I didn't even have a hotel to stay in. I was like, I will figure it out when I get there because I'm broke as a joke, but I want to go. I want to see New York at least once while I'm alive. And I remember the night before, I was talking to my sister. She's like, where will you be staying? I need to know the hotel so if something happens. And I was like, oh yeah, I haven't booked that yet. And she's like, okay, well, do you know which one? I was like, oh, no. I'm going to figure out when I get there where I'll sleep. My sister just looked at me and she's like, what is wrong with you? Why are you the way you are? And so she booked me a hotel. See how God works? She booked me a hotel and I was in New York, but I would just do things by myself. I never found it weird to do things by myself, which I think plays a big part into that, what I was telling you earlier, where I know people thought I was extrovert, but I was actually very introverted because I never had a problem in doing anything by myself. If I wanted to go to the movies and someone would loan me their car, I would go alone and go watch the movie and have the time of my life and laugh and have a good experience and then drive back to campus. And people would be like, where did you go? I went to the movies. Alone? And I'm like, yep. And they'd be like, why? Who does that? And I'm like, I don't know. I just never felt like I had to be with somebody to enjoy something. And so even with going out to eat, I remember one time I had saved money and I was just like, ooh, people keep talking about J. Alexander's. I want to go there. The food sounds great. I got off work one shift and I went and sat in J. Alexander's by myself and had a meal. And people were just like, you went by yourself. And again, I would hear that so much. So that's why when I went to like New York by myself, I wanted to see New York. I wanted to watch a Broadway play if I could afford it. I wanted to experience these things. And for me, I just was never somebody who had to wait to have somebody in order to do something. It just never crossed my mind that it was abnormal to do stuff alone. Because I guess I liked my own company enough to where if a joke was funny and I was watching it on screen, I would laugh by myself and I think this joke is still funny. Now, being married, do I think it's nice to watch it with somebody else? Yeah, I absolutely love it. I love watching a movie with Cody or you when you're here. It's enjoyable. But I could still do it alone and find it funny. So I think that was another part for me where it was just one of those boundaries that I wouldn't let people put their opinion in. And I think people struggled with that. Even now into my adulthood, I find that people will get upset if I'm kind of like, no, I don't want to do that. And they'll be like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. I just don't want to. And because it's something that typically they would do, they find it frustrating that I'm able to just say no and be okay being the only person saying no. I don't know. I've always, so even with the dating at Southern, when people are just like, oh, she's going to end up with a white guy, I'd be like, okay, and you making fun of me is not going to change my mind.
Girl.
Mind dating anybody. I've had a Filipino boyfriend. I've dated a biracial Black guy with Spanish. I've dated a white guy. You making fun of me is not going to change my mind.
That part.
I'm ending up with who I feel comfortable with. And I think that also frustrated people because, sometimes when people would be made fun of, they'd be like, oh, shrink back. And then, well, yeah, I guess I date this person because, there's that pressure. No, that was not me. I remember at African Night, remember that we did that play And they made that comment about Tina and her white boys. And like everybody in the auditorium started laughing and all of that. And I remember for me, I was just like, it was a funny joke. I will laugh, but you will not change my mind. I don't care if you have a stadium of 10,000 people and they think that it's the funniest thing. And they think that it's weird that I would find a white guy attractive or what. For me, it was always at the end of the day, I have to live with this person.
Yep.
So if I take your opinion into a strong consideration and marry somebody just because they're Black, you don't have to live with my day-to-day life.
Right.
You get to move on and choose what you wanted to choose. Meanwhile, you've peer pressured me into a choice that I didn't really want or that I didn't feel was mine.
Yep.
So I think that was just always like a place of like, so when I ended up with a white guy, I was kind of like, it is what it is. I felt loved. I felt cared for. Do I feel like a Black guy could have done that? Absolutely. It just so happened to be that it was a white guy that happened to be okay with my love of country music. Cody does not like country music. Will he sit there listen to it because I'm listening to it? Sure. And it is not his go-to of choice. So it couldn't even be a thing of like, well, of course you'd end up with a white guy. You like country music. Yeah, well, there's white guys who just don't like country music either. I happen to marry them. And so when I met Cody, married him, all these things have even in the background of people's opinions, people's what. I've just always been able to just be like, this is what I want. I'm going to go for it. Except when it came to like my major. For some reason, those decisions, I don't know if cultural thing, Candy, but like, because I feel like even if I went back and did it again, I'd probably still end up doing nursing because my mom put her foot down.
I think it's different. I find myself similar in that I'm a go against the grain type of person. About everybody's going left and I think right is a better option, I'm going to go right. I don't really care if y'all are going left. And I'm not, if you want to go left, all power to you. I'm not dogging on you going to left. I'm just choosing to go right. And maybe if I thought left was better, I would have gone with you, but it would have been because I thought so. But from the parental perspective, and I do think culture plays a big part of this. I think in the cultures that we've grown up in, even though I grew up in the States, my household was Africa, Caribbean. It was not America. So I came home to a totally different country, island every day. And I think just being able to be reminded in some way, shape, or form that you're not from here. Like there's something about the culture that you live in or that you're raised in compared to the culture that you're actively trying to navigate. Mm-hmm. You're not from here. The belief systems out there is not what happens in here. So even when you're going out there, it's like that piece of home we do things out of respect for our parents. It's not so individualistic as we've seen in American culture where it's like, by the time I had a car, I can go and do whatever I want. I can make whatever choices I want. My parents can have me do whatever. I have my own money, I'm kicked out at 18. I can do whatever, right? It's like very separate from the people that raised you. Ours is like, until those people have passed in glory, they are in your brain and in your decisions. It's like, that's where they're at. So I think that's, God, same thing for me with science. Like I did not want to go and become a physician. I went to a boarding arts high school. I was trying to become a theater major. That was my whole goal. I was like, I'm going to be on stage. I'm going to do all this stuff. And my dad was like, pre-med. Like, I was just like, man. Like, that was like, what are you talking about? Who does that? No one. We're not tap dancing our way into riches. Do you know what I did to come here? And they're like, the story. So, like, you like think about those things. It's in the back of your head. The story's in the back of your head. You know, you have in the back of your head, like, okay, I came from outside of this country. I lost a parent in that country, and now I have a parent. She's remarried, but I've already had to get used to this sense of instability that's in the back of my head, and I'm over here. So why would I now go against that grain?
Right.
I gotta make it easy on my parent. She's grieving. I can't just be like, and while you're crying, I'm gonna go do whatever I want. Like, you can't do this. You just can't. So whether it's like a parent passing or like, if your mom had been here, like my dad and my mom being here, and it's like them trying to overcome the racism while still being successful, and then they come home and like remember not what we did, but what we're still doing right now to protect you and shield you and all this stuff. Are you going to throw it away because you want to go be on Broadway? Like,
yep,
Broadway going to pay your bills? No. Like, so I went begrudgingly did pre-med and tried. I wanted to do theater, but I also really liked math. The math department, I kid you not, Professor Heck, Adam Heck? He would call me into his office after stats class, and he'd sit there with me and he'd be like, okay, so what else do I need to say to convince you to be on this side of the hallway versus on that side of the hallway? Because it was really just down the hall. I would be in the same building on the same floor. It was just two separate corners. He's like, I just really feel like you need to be here. And I'm like, are you going to call my Nigerian dad to tell him that? Because I would totally be here. That's why I try to take as many of your classes as possible. That's why I hang out with you often. But this is as close as our relationship is going to be, Professor. Like, my dad is not going to let me commit because he's not committed. Until he's committed, I can't be committed. That's just, I'm stuck. I really don't have a choice in this matter. So I think based on our cultural backgrounds, it's just different. And I think it's hard to explain that in an American culture sense because it's so countercultural to what Americans are raised to believe and have been raised to believe for a long time. Not that wasn't, there wasn't a time where that was a thing in American culture. I think that was not that long ago to be thinking about your parents and things like that, but we've become so separate from that in this country to still be doing that. It's like, you're so backward. Who does that anymore? Yeah. It's like Africans. Africans do that.
That's exactly,
we do that. So
you want to know who still does it? African parents with the quickness.
Yes. So I think it's more cultural than anything else. And at the time that things were happening, I don't think, as much as you wanted to do those things, I think it was just too much to try to be processing, like going against the grain when there was things that were going against what you guys ever wanted in the first place. Like, why would I add to something that's already
exactly?
It feels like a fighting battle that I'm losing every day anyway. We'll just
do this.
Just make it easy on everybody. Let's just truck on through something.
Yep. I think that's exactly what it was, to where I was just like, all right, if I go against the grain, it's going to cause more problems than I think it needs to at this point in time.
Yeah.
So after I finished the master's program, I was pregnant with Addie at the end. And that's when I started to have the health issues. I think the health issues started when I was younger because it started with all the cramping, with the period stuff. But again, I was back in Africa. I think this was a time when, like, if we think that women's health is is not efficient now, it was worse then. So it was that thing of like, I'm cramping and I think they thought I was faking it. I think a lot of people thought I was faking it because I'd just be screaming and pulling out my hair. Like the pain was so severe, and it would start days before my period, like days before, where I'd just be in pain and I'd be nauseous and just feeling awful. They could not figure out what it was until I happened to be in Nairobi and in the city area, because my high school was more in like the boonies. And there was a doctor at the place where we were. And one of my professors was like talking about, the issues that I was having to her doctor friend. And then this doctor overheard, and they're just like, hey, like, do you guys have a moment? Like, just come step in my office. So I go into the office. My faculty teacher was there with me, and the doctor goes, do you mind telling me like what your symptoms are? So I'm like telling her like, this, I have a lot of pain and, this and that. And sometimes I'll get headaches and I just feel awful and it hurts. And she's like, I think you have endometriosis. And she's like, have you ever heard of that? And I'm like, dude, lady, I'm like in the 8th grade. Like, what? I just learned what a period is. Like, let's be serious. And so she like educates me on endometriosis. And I was just like, this has to be what I have, because the pain was just out of this world. And it continued like that all through college. At Southern, I would, once a month, the health center would see me to give me shots, like a Toradol shot for pain, because the pain would get so bad. I'd be vomiting. I couldn't go to class. I couldn't do anything. And so I was just like, well, pregnancy is probably going to be hard, because, I got the official diagnosis when I came to the States that it was endometriosis. And so I was like, everything, like having a baby, they told me having a baby might be a little harder and stuff like that. And so when Cody and I were trying, we initially thought like it's going to take a long time, so we might as well start trying early. Well, a year later, we were pregnant. And then about week 14, I started to have a lot of like pain. Now, with the background of having endometriosis and not really being believed, I think I was already on shaky ground, just that I had gotten so used to people not believing me about like the medical stuff, because I used to have stomach pain so bad, which now we knew was the IBS. But again, back home, like they would just be like, oh, she's faking the stomach aches and all of this. But the stomach aches were extremely real to me. Like it was awful. And so I had just gotten kind of used to people not really believing me when I was in pain and stuff. And so by the time that 14 week, and I was like in a lot of pain, I had mentioned it to my OBGYN, and I had gotten a Black female OBGYN. Because, you watch news and all of these things. I was already concerned about being a Black pregnant woman in the United States. Because for some reason, I had it in me. I was just like, I think I'm going to die. I think I'm going to die. Like, something's off. I think I'm going to die. Like, this is through pregnancy. I just kept having that feeling. So before pregnancy, I was just like, let me find me a Black female doctor who I feel like will listen to me and all of this. Find her. Week 14, I'm having pain. And she's just like, no, that the pain is normal. It was like in my pelvis area, and it hurt. And when I tried to turn in bed, I'd hear clicking. Like I'd hear clicking, and I'd feel like the alignment just go off, and it would hurt so bad. You'd hear like a thunk, and it would hurt so bad as I was trying to roll in bed, or if I was like sitting on the floor and I was trying to get up from that sitting position, clunk, and it would hurt. Like I'd literally be like, like screaming in pain. We got to the point where Cody would have to like lift me from my like pelvis area. He'd have to hold it together to move me like off the floor if I was sitting on the ground, or if I was moving in bed and I'd be like, hey, I want to turn. He'd have to help me shift my hips so that I would turn and not be in pain. And so I went to her and I was like, hey, I'm having this pain. And she's just like, oh, that's normal. The body's changing, so it's normal. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, I haven't really heard of women being in like this much pain at 14 weeks. Like, I've never heard of people being in this much pain. My uncle's an OBGYN, so I had called him after the appointment, and I'm like, hey, is this normal? Like, I'm having a lot of pain. I'm having like this click, like thunk noise. And he's just like, oh, you have pubic symphysis dysfunction. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, pubic symphysis dysfunction. He's just like, yeah, your pubic is just like, it pops out, like it's getting out of alignment. I'm like, well, what can I do? And he's just like, well, if the pain is really severe, what I'll have them do sometimes is they wear like a belt to hold the pelvis together. And it goes really low. So it's not interfering with the pregnancy. It's going low and holding those hips together. So, and I'd gone back to my OBGYN at about 23 or 24 weeks. I told her like the pain was worse. And I was seeing a chiropractor and I was just like, I am just in so much pain. I was like, I don't know what to tell you, but this pain is really bad. And I'm like having that lightning crotch pain. And like, it's just like the pelvis is just, I'm in a lot of pain. I feel like a pressure. And she's like, no, everything's fine. Like when I did, when I looked in or like felt, everything was fine, you know? So I was just like, okay. And so I went to my chiropractor right after seeing her because I was just like, dude, I was like, I'm in so much pain, Dr. Ross. Can you just do an adjustment? I don't know if things are just out of line. I was like, he's like, what are you feeling? I'm like, I'm feeling like a pressure and like sharp pain in my crotch area. And then I keep clicking and it's just, everything just hurts. And he's just like, that's not normal. And he's like, and I'm honestly not comfortable adjusting you when you're having this kind of pain. Can you call your OBGYN and tell her that your chiropractor is asking for an internal ultrasound? And so I was like, yeah, sure. So I called the office and I'm like, hey, my chiropractor is asking, I'm here with him and he wants to ask if you could do an internal ultrasound. And if you're not comfortable with ordering one, like he can find a way to get like one ordered. And so she's like, I hear her like talking because it's the nurse. And she talks to the doctor and they're like, the doctor said just to come in. They don't think anything's wrong, but the doctor said just to come in. So I was like, okay. So I leave the chiropractor and I go back. And I go in, I check in, and the lady's just like, really, like, I don't think anything's wrong. I think it's just your body changing. This isn't the doctor. This is the lady at the desk, like the front desk area. And so I was just like, yeah, well, because I talked to her a little bit on my way out when I was leaving. And I was just like, yeah, I'd rather be safe than sorry because like the pain is just a lot, you know. And in my mind, I'm just like, I've had endometriosis at this point for a long time. I can handle pain. Like, but this is like a different kind of pain. Like this is extremely uncomfortable. And then add the pressure. And so the technician, you know, is doing the internal ultrasound and then she starts taking pictures and she's like, were you in a room? And I was like, no, I'd been sitting out here. And then they called me here. She's like, all right. She's like, can you go sit in the doctor's office? I'll have her meet you in there. And she like prints out the ultrasound. And so I'm just like, and something's wrong. Because typically they don't send you to the doctor's office, like the sit down office, unless the doctor needs to talk to you and tell you something's wrong. And so we go into the office because Cody was with me and I kept telling him, like, yeah, something's definitely wrong. And so she comes in, the doctor comes in, opens the chart. She's looking at and she's like, okay. She's like, so your cervix is opening from the inside and you're in labor. And I was like, say what? And I remember immediately being so angry. Candy.
I can't, girl. Not finished.
What?
Just needed to scream. Just needed to scream. Just needed to scream. Just needed to scream. I just needed to scream. Okay.
It's okay. I felt the same way. Like when she told me this, I felt the same way because I'm looking at her and I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, are you guys able to go to Erlanger and I'll come meet you down there. You're in labor. And I'm just like,
I'm waiting for the apology. I'm waiting for the accountability of thinking I'm crazy and being like, oh no, it's actually really nothing.
It's
being
totally
offended by my chiropractor suggesting anything. Because it's a chiropractor. What does a chiropractor know?
What does he know? Yep, that's exactly how I felt. And so I just start crying. I cried all the way to the hospital because I was like, I am like 23, it was either 23 or 24 weeks. No, I was 20 because right at the end of that week, I was hitting 24. And I was just like, all right, if I can just get to 24, the baby will be viable.
So you've been going through this since 14 weeks? And
14 weeks.
Bringing this up.
Weeks. And so it was so annoying because she obviously had to call in a specialist now to get on board. And the specialist is just like, when did you start having this pain? So I'm telling him like 14 weeks. And he's just like, we could have done like a switch if we had caught it early, but it's too far. Like you're too far open and you're too far into the pregnancy now for us to do a cerclage, like a stitch to close to hold the cervix closed. I remember just being so mad. So they have me on a magnesium drip the whole time. And they're like, well, you can't eat because, again, labor. And if you start to have the baby and you need to have a C-section or something, you can't eat. So I remember just laying in there crying. And by this time, I was actually working at the same hospital, just on a different floor. I was in the orthopedic floor, and right now I'm at mother baby. And so I just kept crying, and I was just like, I have to go to work tomorrow. Like, I remember being like, I have to go to work tomorrow. Like, I can't call out. Like, they're going to be short-staffed. And, like, I was just such a mess. And I was just like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, I kept going back and thinking, I'm like, what did I do wrong? Like, could I have done something wrong? And I tried to tell her at 14 weeks. So I was just crying. And then the specialist, he was amazing. And he came in again because, Candy, I was a mess. Like, I was like boo-hoo, full on. Like, they were trying to calm me down because they're just like, you're going to make it worse, you know. And I was just so angry. And so he comes in and he does another ultrasound. And he's just like, all right, so the cervix hasn't opened anymore. He's like, how about this? If I check it tomorrow morning and you have not opened anymore, I will let you go home. Because I was like, I can't stay here. Like, I didn't want to hear the beeping. I didn't want to, like, I was like, I work in this hospital. I literally have trauma when I go home because I still hear the beeping noises. And so the night before I would have to go to work, even before like all of this, I'd be so anxious. Like, I couldn't sleep the nights before work just because, I don't know, like I could still hear the beeping. And what I think it's just because my heart wasn't in nursing. So it was very anxiety provoking to like the next day before work. I wouldn't even be able to enjoy a Sunday if I was working on Monday. Like the whole day I'd just be anxious. And so I was just in there crying because they were trying to keep me there till at least 37 weeks. And I was like, I am only at 23, turning 24 weeks. I can't be in the hospital that long. I just can't do it. Like, I was like, I don't think mentally I can make it. I was telling him and I was still crying. And so he's like, all right, if I do the ultrasound tomorrow and it hasn't changed, I will let you go home on the condition that if you feel anything, I mean, anything, you start to feel tightening of your abdomen and you come back. Like he's like, where's the closest hospital? I was like, it's Women's East. Perfect. That's like the main labor and delivery in this area closer to me. And I was like, I'm about 20 minutes from there. And so he's just like, if you can guarantee to me that you will listen to your body and come back or call, I will let you go home. Girl, I prayed that whole night. I was like, Lord, if you keep my vagina shut, I will do whatever you want. Like, I have never prayed so hard. I was like, please keep my baby in there to cook a little longer. Just like for it to even get to at least 28 weeks. Like, girl, give her something to develop, you know.
Listen, I've not had a baby. But when I tell you I've prayed the vagina prayer before.
Yeah.
Women who have gone through severe anything reproductive.
Mm-hmm.
No.
The vagina prayer.
The vagina prayer is real.
Yep.
It is real. Because like you said, you feel crazy already. You feel crazy that people either don't believe you or they didn't believe you and now they're like backpedaling and things are worse and all this stuff and you're in all this pain and they're trying to convince you now that, you know, you need to hold it together until it's like, we could have not needed to hold it together if you'd listened to me the first time. And now I'm having to cry out to Jesus to hold my internal organs together and not fall out of my hoo-ha because you didn't do your job. Like,
your job. Yeah. It was, but that specialist was from above. I mean, if there was a person outside of Cody who I felt could settle my soul, it was him. Every time I saw him, there was just like this peace.
Yes.
And I was just like, okay, Lord, like, I feel like you're giving me the reassurance. He gave us his cell phone number. He's like, if anything's wrong, just because I remember one time I had to call him and I felt so bad because he was at his kid's birthday party. And like, I was describing what was going on and he's like, it's okay. You know, like walk me through it. And then he's like, all right, I'm going to have you go into the emergency department. We're going to do the scan. They're going to call me. And then if I will show up. And I'm like, can you just only show up like if they actually need you? Like, I don't want you to leave your kid's party because then I already feel bad. But I mean, God sent this man anytime I was in office getting scanned. Like he did not play around. And so towards the end of the pregnancy, I remember mentioning to my regular OBGYN, I'm just like, man, I'm getting super dizzy. Like if I lift my arm above my head, I get palpitations and I get dizzy. And I remember her asking, she's like, why are you lifting your hand above your head? And I was like, it's typically like when I'm in the shower, you know, like you're doing this movement. I was like, anytime it goes up above here, I will throw palpitations and I get dizzy. And so I was like, but I've noticed I've been having more palpitations. And she was just like, yeah, well, you know, when you're pregnant, there's more blood flow. So there's more work on the heart. So you're going to have sometimes palpitations. And I was like, yeah, it makes sense. And so I remember also being like, hey, like my blood pressure is like 131. And that's a little elevated for me. Now, I know for the average American, that's a completely normal blood pressure. For me, though, I've always run low. So I've been like your 104s over 60 something, your 90 something over something. Like I've always just run a lot lower. My heart rates always run higher. So when my heart rate was at like 121, and I was like, 121 and my blood pressure's up. And I was just like, I know you guys don't think this is elevated, but it's not normal for me. And then they'd be like, nah, you know, you're pregnant. There's more fluid. Your blood pressure might run a little higher. And I'm like, hey, you guys are like the specialists. You know, my specialty is orthopedics, so I'll mind my own business. Well, long story short, the body stays closed. Addison refuses to come out. She ends up being a C-section. Bada bing, bada boom. Great. I did not go back to work after I had her because, I don't know, I was just so tired after I had her. And I couldn't function the way I was functioning before. I constantly felt tired. I was so swollen. Like, talk about weight gain to the max. Like, you would have thought pre-eclampsia. Like, I just kept gaining weight and I could not lose it. I think I lost like a little bit when she was born and then the weight just kept on piling on. And so we did foster care. Because for me, I remember telling Cody, I was like, I always wanted to adopt a child. Even when I was in high school, like on the weekends, I would go to like the orphanages. That's just where I enjoyed spending time. Orphanages, like with the babies and just having activities for the youth, which is how I ended up getting involved in Advent Home, remember, at Southern. And so those were just the things that I enjoyed. I just loved doing that. And so we had signed up for foster care. I think I enjoyed doing it, but it was very hard. And then they ended up going to like a forever placement because I had two and my sister had two. It was a sibling group. And so it was easier if my sister had two and then I had two so that we could all get together often and the siblings could see each other. They weren't in like some separate homes where they wouldn't be able to be with each other. My sister and I saw each other a lot. So the siblings were able to see each other. And so when they went to their forever placement home, I was pregnant again. And man, that was rough. But from the beginning, I had called the high-risk doctor and I was like, hey, I'm pregnant again. And they're like, great, you're going to be seeing us like from the jump. So I was seeing my regular OB, but I was also seeing high risk. Even through Addie's pregnancy, I was on bed rest from the time they discharged me. I was on bed rest till she came out. So that was a couple of months on bed rest. It was hard. I had gestational diabetes. It was a hard time mentally. I remember crying a lot in bed and just really struggling with depression because when your world slows down but doesn't stop, it's just a different ball game. And so that was a really hard time for me, which I do feel like into a part with my current relationship with Addie. I do feel like sometimes it tends to be harder, even with her just being 6. But I think it comes from the pregnancy because the pregnancy was so hard. And so I'm constantly like working hard at it being, like telling your mind, like, this is not my child problem. It was my body failed. It's not my baby's fault. So, but that's also what I was talking to you about, like how postpartum lasts like a long time. As much as people want to act like, oh, postpartum happens, you have your kid 4 weeks later, or whenever your vagina heals, your brain heals with it. It lasts a lot longer. It took a long time, to like even out that relationship with my first baby. But I think it's because all that happened with that first pregnancy. When I was pregnant with Emma, the doctor let me work out through the whole pregnancy. That was the one thing I asked. I was like, please just let me, because I had already been going to the gym. Again, remember, the gym is like, exercise has been my form of control. The eating disorder had stopped. Like, I'd still have those thoughts of just like, well, maybe I don't eat that much today because, just because. But exercise was my way of control. And after the whole thing had happened with Addie, I already felt like I was losing control because my body wasn't working the way we thought it should. The doctor wasn't listening to me. So, I mean, when she came out, I think I was working out. Like, the moment the doctor gave me the all clear, I was back in the gym. And I was frustrated because as much as I was working out, the weight just kept going up. And then people would make comments. I mean, I'd run into people and be like, oh, wow, I didn't recognize you. You look so different now. And I'm like, oh, I get it. I'm fat. I know. The person that used to work out all the time at school is now fat. Like, so then I would stop going places because I didn't want to run into people. So, but pregnant with Emma. And that's the one thing that they allowed me to do. I think they also realized like it helped with my depression. And so I worked out through that whole pregnancy. When I was not working out, I was on bed rest for the whole pregnancy. I was also on pelvic rest for the whole pregnancy. Cody's a saint because I was on pelvic rest also for Addie's pregnancy from 24 weeks till Addie came. And then Emma's, I was on pelvic rest from the beginning of the pregnancy. The moment they found out I was pregnant, pelvic rest. So that was its own little thing. But I worked out through the whole pregnancy with her. But that feeling of, I think I'm going to die, was back. And it was strong. And I just could not pinpoint what was wrong because I even kept watching like documentaries of moms and like complications. I was just like, why do I have this feeling that I'm going to die? Like, it's the same OBGYN. She was doing so much better this time because of all the complications and her not listening before. I mean, she was listening now. Anytime I complained about something, she was on it. Let's do an ultrasound. Let's do an internal. And I think it's also because I also had high risk. So it's like, there was also people watching her. And so, I just had that strong feeling. I really couldn't shake it. But I think being able to exercise and get out of the house and talk to people when I was at the gym, it helped. And so I'm towards the end of my pregnancy with Emma. And I noticed I'm just like, man, I'm getting short of breath and having these like palpitations. So I mentioned it to the doctor and she's like, again, like, it's pregnancy. It's a lot of fluid. Everything will be fine. But at week 36, I was just having so much pain. I was uncomfortable. I remember going in for my visit and I was just like, I can't do this. Like, I'm in so much pain. I'm so uncomfortable. I'm having pressure. I'm having sharp pain. I was like, I'm pretty sure my cervix is opening again. I'm just so uncomfortable. And so she's like, all right. She's like, we can go ahead and do the C-section this evening. And I was like, oh, from your lips to God's ears, because I needed this baby out. Have the C-section, go home. Things seem like they're going fine. I'm still struggling because the weight's not coming off. Couldn't pinpoint it. I mean, I changed my diet, everything. I tried Mediterranean diet. I tried fasting. I tried everything. You know, as people see you, I'd always get like advice from people. Hey, like maybe you're just not eating enough vegetables, or, you know, maybe if you do the intermittent fasting and it's just a window of time for food, maybe you're just eating more than you think you are. And I was just like, dude, like something's wrong with my body. Like, I don't know how else to tell you guys, like something's wrong. I kept going to the doctor. I think I went to the ER like 5 or 6 times. I think they thought I was a hypochondriac because I was just like, something's wrong. Like I'm having this like anxiety, like panic attack, like that something's wrong. And then I literally got to the point where I was having like chest pain and it would be shooting down my arm. And I was like, something is wrong. Kept going to the ER. Nothing. And I remember when I went to the ER one time after Addie was born, and it was just like, I'm not really sure what to tell you. Like, I'm just not feeling good. I'm like mumbling my words, like I was stuttering. And I was like, and that's not normal for me. I just feel weird. Like my hand feels weird. They run all the labs and everything. Couldn't find anything. And then the ER doctor was like, well, you know, can you like close your eyes for me and hold out your arms? So they do like the drift test and all that for a stroke. And sure enough, one side was drooping. My whole left side is weak. And so he's like, yeah, I think you had a TIA. And I'm just like, oh, lovely. Lovely, lovely. And he's like, but I think, you know, out of everything reported and everything passed, but I think you have had a TIA.
Explain what a TIA is.
It's a transient, like it's a stroke. Okay, like it's a stroke, but the stroke didn't stay and like do more damage. The blood stopped because it was blocked, and then the blockage was able to move. So there was a few minutes or a few seconds of no blood getting to a certain part of my brain or a certain part of my body. And then the blockage moved and then blood flow came back. So it's like a transit. So it's a moving through kind of stroke versus other people who will have like a clot. It will stop. No blood will get to that area of the brain or anything. And then you have like the permanent drooping, the permanent weakness and all of that because more damage has been done.
Yeah.
Mine happened more in a passing way, but I still have left-sided weakness. It's not as bad as other people's, but I'm definitely weaker on my left side. And so I remember telling the ER this, like, after Emma's, I was like, hey, you know, they think I had a TIA after I had my first kid. And they're like, no, we've run all the labs. Everything's coming back normal. There's a test that they do. I just cannot remember the name of it. But if it's high, it's typically showing that the heart is working really hard. Okay. That test that they did on me, it was so low, it was completely normal. So they did an EKG, they did all these things. My labs would come back perfectly normal. And I really think they thought I was crazy. And honestly, I started to think I was going crazy because I was having these problems and nobody could find out what's wrong. I had gone to my primary care. I mean, she had run test after test after test. I was being told I just had anxiety. So they put me on stuff for anxiety. I was told it's reflux. They put me on stuff for reflux. But it kept persisting and I kept saying something is wrong. I mean, I went from doctor to doctor. I felt like I was doctor, like hopping because something was wrong. And now I'm starting to feel crazy because now I'm starting to see things. Like I'd literally be sitting in the living room and I'd be like, whoa, I thought I saw something from the corner of my eye. And I'd look over there and like, there's nothing there. And I was just like, what is going on with me? Well, my husband and I decided we were going to rip the house because, you know, it was old carpet and we felt like it just smelled kind of mildewy. So when we ripped the carpet out of the house, we put in this new vinyl stuff ourselves and I start coughing. And I just thought, like, ripping out the carpet, I just breathed something in that's irritating my lungs. So that night I go to lay down and I'm coughing and I cannot lay down. Like, I have to sit up. So I go to the living room and I'm still coughing, but it's a lot less than when I'm laying down. And I was just like, what is going on? I must have really inhaled whatever that was. The next day, same thing. I'm still coughing. The next day, still coughing. Like, it would not go away. And it got worse when I was laying down. So I ended up sleeping in the living room a lot, sitting up. And so by this time, I had been going to my allergist. We're now about 8 months postpartum. And I'm going to my allergist because they were giving me allergy shots. I have a severe allergy to mold. I mean, if I eat cheese, I'm like down for like 2 or 3 days. Like, mold and me are just not. Even if I eat mushrooms, I will feel sick. And so we had gone and I started doing shots for a lot of the allergens that are here for mold. I'm allergic to cats and dogs. And I have cats and dogs. It's just not an extremely high allergy. So I keep my cats and dogs. But I started getting shots. And I noticed that my palpitations had started to come back. And so I had asked the allergist, I'm like, hey, do you think that the shots are triggering palpitations? And he's like, I've never heard of that. But he's like, we can't rule it out, because anything new that you introduce to the body could cause stuff. He's like, but I don't think it's the shots. And he's like, can you describe it? I'm like, yeah. Like, sometimes I'll feel my heart run and I have to cough to stop it from running. Like, I have to do a cough to interrupt it so that I can catch my breath, because it will literally take my breath away. And he's just like, well, I'm really good friends with this cardiologist, and I want you to see him, just so that he can make sure there's nothing going on. And if he rules that out, then maybe we'll stop the shots, because then maybe it is the shots. And I was like, I had this during pregnancy, but it went away after the pregnancy ended, but it's coming back. And so he sets it up. I get a call from that doctor's office. I get an appointment. I go see the doctor. And I come in. He's like, you look completely normal. I mean, there was no swelling in my feet, no swelling in my abdomen, at least that he could tell. Because I was already big. I think I was weighing 267 pounds by this time. And so he's just like, you're not holding on to fluid. I can't tell if you're holding on to fluid. He's like, your feet look fine. You're not swollen. So he's like, can you climb a flight of stairs? I'm like, yeah, there's stairs in my house. I was like, I won't be like completely out of breath. I'll be uncomfortable, but I'm not completely out of breath. Because remember, I was still going to the gym. And so he's like, here, how about you wear a heart monitor? Let's see what it says. And then because you had a baby 8 months ago, there's this thing that I just want to look for. And it's typically caught 4 months post-pregnancy, usually like within the first few weeks of pregnancy. And the latest end of it being 4 months post-pregnancy is when it's caught. He's like, I don't think you have it because you're 8 months postpartum. So he's like, but we're going to rule it out because you did have a baby. And he's like, I'm not going to schedule a follow-up appointment because I think everything's going to be fine. So I was like, okay. So sure enough, he gets the reading from the heart monitor. He's like, it looks completely normal. And then I do the echo. It's called an echo. The echo is just an ultrasound of your heart. Literally the same way that they look at the baby inside your stomach. They put it over your heart and it gives them images of like the different chambers in the heart. And you see how strong the heart can pump, and they do all these measurements. I did the echo. And then I get a call about a week later at 5:30 in the evening, and it's the doctor's nurse. And she's like, hey, is this Victoria? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, are you able to sit down? I have to talk to you about something. And I was just like, yeah, sure. So I sit down at home and I'm still coughing because, the cough is still there. And then she's like, all right, well, the doctor wanted me to call you because you're in congestive heart failure.
Wow. I need to sit with her story. I need to sit with what she shared. And this is just part one. Next week, we're going to go into part 2 of what this diagnosis has led to. I want to know what you're thinking. I want to know what you're feeling. What comes up for you listening to all the different transitions that Tina has gone through up until this point in her story. This might be hard to hear, the things that she's saying. But I promise you, come back next week. To hear how it has resolved, where she's at. And I want you to take time over the next week to really sit with things that she has said thus far. Transitions are not easy, especially the unexpected ones that come like a gut punch. I feel like a Mack truck keeps rolling over you and doesn't seem to have plans to stop. And yet, there is good that can come out of every type of transition. We may have to be patient in our waiting for it, but it's there. Share your thoughts in the comments on YouTube, on your streaming platform that you listen to this. If you're listening audio, share your comments on clips that you see on social media. Share this with friends, loved ones. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I hope that next week we can come back here together, eager to hear the rest of her story. And until then, I love you guys. Take care. Stay safe. God bless. And besitos. We'll talk soon. Bye.